All right, let's give it a couple more minutes and wait for everybody to come in, I guess.
No, but this morning I was like, ooh, that's not.
Janae, where are you joining us from?
Although it was 32. And I wake up and
You're on mute, Janae.
I was just curious. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Janae, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. It took me a second to pull that up. I'm joining you all from Los Angeles, California.
Okay, great.
Same.
Meet you, Jen Lauren. Good to
What
meet you
about
too.
you? Very nice to meet you, Jennifer. Where are you joining us from?
Oklahoma from the Cherokee Nation.
Awesome. Awesome. Very excited to visit with you guys.
Yeah, you as well. Kevin, where are you joining from? Where are you all joining from?
We are both coming to you from the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And this is my producing partner, Ray. He's a co-owner of Knowledge Tree. Hello, hello.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
All right. I guess we'll go ahead and get things going. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for IANTA's webinar series. Today's webinar is in partnership with the National Endowments for the Arts, NEA. My name is Savannah Sparvier. I'm Lakota Hunkpapa from the Fort Peck Sioux Reservation. For over a year now, I've been serving as the Arts and Culture Coordinator at IANTA. And today I will be your moderator for this webinar. For those of you who don't know about IANTA, for more than 25 years, the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association, IANTA, has served as the only national organization dedicated to advancing cultural heritage tourism in Native nations and communities. IANTA is a national nonprofit governed by an all-Native board of directors and serves as a united voice for 15.7 billion Native hospitality sector. IANTA's mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors Native traditions and values. Today, our presenters will be Jennifer Lauren of the Cherokee Nation. Jennifer is an Emmy Award-winning TV host, filmmaker, and senior director of Cherokee Film. In this role, she sets strategy, oversees all operations of Cherokee Film Production, Cherokee Film Studio, Cherokee Film Commission, and the Cherokee Film Institute. Jennifer is globally recognized for her work breaking new ground in the field of Native American presentation in the film and media. In addition to hosting the award-winning docuseries OCO, Voices of the Cherokee People, Jennifer passionately leads a team of more than 35 content creators and change makers whose mission is to protect and share authentic Cherokee experience, culture, and history to increase the presence of Native American across film and media. Next, we have Janae Collins, actor. She's an enrolled member of the Fort Peck, Assiniboine, and Sioux tribes from Poplar, Montana. She began her acting career during college at University of New Mexico, where she began training and auditioning. After securing Screen Actors Guild Union eligibility in New Mexico with a speaking role on productions of Longmire, She moved to Los Angeles, California, where she currently resides. Since moving to Los Angeles, she has appeared notably as Cookie in Reservation Dogs, Chloe in Rutherford Falls, and Rita in Killers of the Flower of the Moon. We also have with us Kevin Marcus. Kevin received a BA in feature film production and commercial photography from Brooks Institute of Photography. Worked freelancing in film, television, and documentaries industry, and co-founded his current company, Knowledge Tree Films, and its partner organization, the Knowledge Tree Media Group, in 2009. Kevin focuses media productions which tells emotionally impactful, educational, and accurate story. His interests extend to environmental issues, social justice concerns, and contributing inclusive storytelling. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please place them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Our first speaker is Jennifer Lauren.
Oseo Nagad, Nokwasi Dagwajo, Chishalagi. Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Lauren. I am a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I am joining you from the Cherokee Nation Reservation here in Oklahoma. I am specifically just outside of Tulsa in Owasso, and I'm joining you from our sound stages today. I'm in a new office with nothing on the walls, so but I'm glad to be here today. So I have a presentation that usually takes 30 minutes, so I'm going to go through it really fast. But essentially, I'm this, as Savannah mentioned, and thank you so much, Savannah, for the introduction, and thank you to Ainta for having me. As she said, I'm the senior director of Cherokee Film. And so Cherokee Film, we describe to people as an ecosystem. And we have 4 branches of that ecosystem, which I'll get into. But I mean, it all started with the Cherokee Nation, my tribe, saying, you know, we finally have the means to tell our own story, our own stories. And so how are we going to do that? So they hired me. I was an investigative journalist working here in Tulsa. And they hired me, and a team, we got together and said, you know, let's start telling our story. And if you could switch to the next slide. Here we go. So in 2014, they hired me. 10 years. I'm celebrating 10 years here this month. And we created a docuseries. We said, let's take out the middleman. Let's take out, you know, let's just, for our first thing, let's go straight and have our people tell their own stories in a documentary style. And so we wanted it to look, at the time, we were saying, like, you know, longer form journalism / documentary. So essentially, we created a 30-minute docuseries that features the stories of 3 Cherokee Nation citizens that are doing amazing things in any industry, or just have a cool story to tell. We wanted to look for people that had like something visually exciting, you know, things like that. And so you could have these, they're like short documentaries, 3 short documentaries in each episode. So you could be like a chef who is creating Cherokee inspired dishes at a restaurant in Tulsa. It could be a culture keeper who is teaching people to speak the Cherokee language. It could be a basket weaver, or it could be a helicopter pilot for the Coast Guard based out of Oregon, who's a Cherokee Nation citizen. It could be anything, anyone who has an interesting story to tell. We just did one on a Cherokee Nation citizen who coaches an all indigenous roller derby team out of Los Angeles, which is really exciting and fun. So we look for those really cool stories. And the whole purpose is to tell people, you know, like, first of all, we're still here. And second of all, you know, we probably, when you think of Cherokee, you may have preconceived notions of what that means. And we're going to show you through our docuseries what it really means to be Cherokee, which is a varied experience for every person. And so in that docuseries, we also broke out a Cherokee Almanac, which is, we tell a piece of Cherokee and American history from our point of view, using academics and Cherokee academics, or or people who have studied and are well-versed in Cherokee history. And then we also do a language lesson in that 30-minute episode as well. And we use children from our immersion school to do the language lessons. And so it grew from there. So we had such a success with that docuseries. It's distributed on public television. So we called our local public television station OETA, which is statewide, and we created a deal with them where they air our 30-minute docuseries statewide, and then it grew from there. It went into Arkansas statewide, and now we're nationally distributed through an organization called NETA. And so you can see us anywhere. You can see us in all 50 states of the United States. And we're really excited to have grown that over 10 years. But we had such success with that we wanted to say, like, well, we are able to create this content that it's not just, yes, Cherokees love it. Non-Cherokee, other Native people love it, but people who have no connection to Cherokee people or Native Americans at all also really enjoyed it. And it's a great teaching tool, but it's also entertaining and it's beautiful. It has very high production values. We wanted to be able to teach, what else can we do with that? So we kind of use that as our peg, but then we kind of blew it up on a global scale, and we created the Cherokee Nation Film Office. And the Cherokee Nation Film Office has a lot of initiatives that go out that can help any Native Americans anywhere in the world to get involved in the film industry. So we created directories of Native American talent. So any Native American can get their profile on our website so they can be hired by film production, so that when Hollywood says we couldn't find any natives to play this role, we can say, oh, really? Because there's a whole directory right here full of natives that you could hire, and connections to their agencies and things like that. Casting agents use it all the time. Casting directors use it all the time. And then a crew database. Also, we created a crew directory, Native American crew. So same thing. You can find people who work professionally in the industry and are Native American in our directories. And then we do historical. We have a directory that's behind it. We only have access to it and give it to those who request it and qualify. But we also have Native American historical and cultural consultants, which we can provide to productions when it's appropriate. And then we also created just a lot of different initiatives to teach people workshops, we scholarship people to take workshops to learn how to do lighting or camera or writing for screenwriting, things like that. So over the years, all of that morphed into, in 2023, this ecosystem, Cherokee Film. Can you go ahead and go to the next slide? I think this might be, yeah. So this is, this just shows you OCO Voices of the Cherokee People, our docu-series. This is just like a snip from an ad that we have done. And I think we might have a little bit of a sizzle reel to play on the next slide. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, there's no audio. That's all right. So that was just a short promo for the season 9 of OCO. We call it OCO. And it just shows you through all those people that you saw on screen are citizens of the Cherokee Nation. And so it kind of proves that for a lot of people who don't have experience with Cherokee people or with Indigenous people, that, you can't tell a book by its cover, and that we are a varied group of people. So we can go on to the next slide. So this is Cherokee Film. This is our logo. This is our ecosystem we're going to get into. Let's go to the next slide. We are a team of innovators and storytellers, and we are grounded in community and passionate about creating a new way forward for Cherokee and Native American representation in film and media. Authentic, thoughtful, and next level, we strive to reclaim our narratives on a local and global scale. So here we kind of shorten that all down to say we are innovating narrative sovereignty for Cherokee Nation and helping others as well. Go to the next slide. Why is this important? Probably a lot of people on this webinar already know this, but you would be surprised when we present in other communities that people just never, this was never on their radar. But Indigenous people are shown in traditional media at a rate of less than 1%. A lot of times those are based on stereotypes when people are being portrayed in film and media. And according to the Hollywood Diversity Report in 2023, with the exception of total streaming film actors, people of color remained underrepresented on every industry employment front in 2022. It's getting better. You've seen the shows. Janae has been on many of those that are doing things the right way. So it's really exciting to see that. But you know, we have to continue. Let's go to the next slide. Our mission at Cherokee Film is to reclaim Cherokee and Native narratives by increasing representation across film and media. And we do that while creating an ecosystem that supports production and drives economic activity here on the res in the Cherokee Nation. Next slide. So these are our branches. Each one of the O's in Cherokee has a significance. And so the top Cherokee Film, that's that represents the sacred fire in the Cherokee Nation. And then the film productions is either a paddle stamp for what we use in pottery. And then the Cherokee Film Commission, that's a wind symbol. And then the Cherokee Film Institute is a sun. And then the studios is just kind of like it's a mix between a basket weave and a camera lens shutter. And then we can go to the next slide. This is, I think, I don't know if we will have time to play this whole thing. So we'll just, and there's no sound, so it's okay. We can just let it play, but I'll just kind of talk about what we're seeing. File might be, okay, yeah. This is a sizzle reel that explains our entire ecosystem. I'll just let you see some of the visuals here. But we were able to create this ecosystem because of our leadership at Cherokee Nation. That's Chief Hoskin, our principal chief. And really they see the value in what we're doing, and they see how this can be a game changer, not just for, film, representation in film, but what that means to our people, to be able to be a part of the industry, to have an impact on the way that stories are told, to bring that authenticity, to bring that community-driven focus into the production process, which we feel like is really needed. And so we also have a lot of productions that we do here ourselves on behalf of the Cherokee Nation that are specifically Cherokee content. And that includes documentaries, and it includes a talk show. We do animation that is both 2D, 3D, motion capture, and we have a volume in our sound stages. So we really have like every paintbrush and every palette of every paint to put on a palette to create whatever we want, which is really useful in things like language revitalization for the Cherokee Nation. So we have a film commission, and what we do is we've created a film rebate. So we have $1 million a year that we use to incentivize films to come film in the Cherokee Nation Reservation for the economic activity that it creates. But also we'll give every production that qualifies 25 cents back for every dollar they spend on hiring a Native American to work on their film production. So that's both above the line and below the line, which in the industry means like your big named actors, your directors, if you'll bring a project that has big named Native American actors or big named Native American directors or producers or writers, then we can give you a rebates for all of those people. And then anybody that runs the camera, sound, lighting, catering, set construction, if you hire natives and have them working on a film here or a series here in the Cherokee Nation Reservation, then you could qualify for 25% cash back for those folks, which is a big part of the film industry, are film rebates. And that's a big part of how you finance projects. So we're doing everything we can to work with the industry, work with allies, work with how things have been done to really create this new way forward. And we teach people along the way. Okay, we can go to the next slide. I'm going to have to really motor through these next ones. So our branch, Cherokee Film Productions, we develop, produce, and promote a lot of different content. We can go to the next one. So we're working to create that change. We are giving filmmakers narrative sovereignty and the autonomy to tell their own stories. What makes a project Native American is a question we get a lot. And to us, what makes a project Native American is a whole host of things. It can be that it's being told by a Native American writer. It could be that it has a Native American director. It can be that it has Native American characters in it. It can be that it has a theme of Native storytelling, history, whatever it is. And we feel we are held accountable by audiences and our tribe. And this is something we take very seriously. And so we bring that community-driven aspect to all the decisions that we make when it comes to how we tell our stories. We'll go to the next slide, please. These are just some of the types of productions we do. Whoops, I don't know what happened to the rest of that slide. And we can go on to it all started with that top one, the docuseries, but now this is a list of all the things that we're doing through our productions arm. We can go to the next slide. So our studios, we have 2 sound stages here, just 15 minutes away from Tulsa International Airport in the Cherokee Nation Reservation. And we use them for creating our own content, but also we invite people to come and rent our studios to generate revenue so that we can create more content. Go ahead to the next slide. And that's also something that we are trying to boost the film industry here in Oklahoma and create this infrastructure. And the idea is we want to become a hub for Native American storytelling here in the Cherokee Nation, because we're really trying to tackle things in the industry in a way that makes sense for Native Americans. In a lot of ways that, the typical Hollywood process works has made it difficult for us to have accurate representation in film and media. So we're trying to change that through our studios and all of our infrastructure. Let's go to the next slide. These are our studios. So I'm joining you from that building on the right right now. And then the one on the left is just brand new. We just cut the ribbon on that last month. We can go to the next slide. The commission, again, we kind of act as like we recruit films here. So one of the first films to use our rebate program through the Film Commission was Fancy Dance, written and directed by Erica Tremblay and starring Lily Gladstone. And so they were the first film to come and utilize our rebate, which it was just a dream come true, the way that worked. And we were able to give them the financing through our rebate that was that kind of final piece to make them have their financing so they could be able to make the movie. And then they made it right here in the Cherokee Nation Reservation, which worked for their script. It was great. We can go to the next slide. This is more about what I already talked about. We also have, you can see on the left, this is just a location. So the Film Commission we're always, we have a locations directory on our website, which I think is pertinent to this organization and the tourism. So we also hope that through our commission and the work that we're doing, that will, like Fancy Dance is an example of one film, but they filmed in some really beautiful locations. And, there is a tourism aspect to that. I know certainly with Killers of the Flower Moon, which Janae was in, they have a lot of tourism in that area, in Pawhuska and the Bartlesville area, because of that film. And so that's something that can really benefit a community economically. And we're always looking for those opportunities to kind of promote our locations in the Cherokee Nation to film production so that they can bring their film here, and then there can be tourism opportunities later. But this is an example of some of the beautiful waters that we have in Cherokee Nation, spring-fed creeks. And we can go to the next slide. This is from the premiere Fancy Dance. Some of the folks from the Cherokee Nation and Lily, we were able to attend that as our first big project. It was really exciting to see it on the big screen. That was in New York City. You can go to the next slide. The Institute, this is our latest endeavor. So the Institute, we have launched it. We start classes on January 11th. We have just closed the window for applicants, but we are essentially going to be teaching and scholarshiping Native Americans to get into the film industry. So intro to film, camera basics, lighting basics, screenwriting, all those kinds of things. We're really excited about this. That's our latest thing. So next slide. Well, we also will, as part of the Institute, when someone gets their certificate from the Cherokee Film Institute, they will be able to apply to become an apprentice on a film, and we will pay for someone to be on a film for 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks. We will pay their wages so that they can get that hands-on experience on a film and get a credit, which is key to getting jobs in the film industry. So we're really excited about that program and what it could mean for the industry. And then when films do come here, use our rebate, they will have crew that has credits and has been on a film set and they know how to do the jobs. And we can go to the next slide. I think we're getting to the end. Yeah, we are celebrating 1 year of Cherokee Film. I think that'll do it for me. I appreciate you all for listening, and I'm happy to take questions at the end. We don't have to go through the rest of them. If you need to go through them, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. Our next speaker will be Janae Collins. Janae, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties. Hello, everyone. My name is Janae Collins. I am from the Fort Packasinaboine Sioux Reservation. I grew up the majority of my life there, although I did grow up in other places. My mom is a psychologist that worked for IHS, so I ended up in places like Rapid City, Crow Agency, Phoenix. I've lived a lot of places, but I'm really grateful to be here today. Thank you so much to Savannah and Sherry and Ayenta. And thank you for that wonderful presentation, Jennifer. That was amazing. I'm so excited to learn more about the Cherokee Film stuff. It's absolutely amazing. I've been hearing such great things about it. From an actor's standpoint, you know, there's a lot of how do I say it? There's a lot of situations where natives are very underrepresented, and just really like coming to it. I've been auditioning, I've been training for the last 13 years of my life as an actor. Starting in New Mexico, that's where I initially, I guess, caught the acting bug at the University of New Mexico. And I didn't, coming from the community that I came from in Poplar, Montana, I didn't think that it was possible. You know, I had read books about acting. I had, you know, loved movies. Everyone loves movies, but like, you know, when you're a kid on the res and you're like watching other kid actors and you're like, I wish I could do that, you know, like it was very difficult to see myself in that position because we hadn't traditionally seen a lot of representation on film and television as Native actors, as Native children in that perspective. I mean, we did have productions with amazing actors such as Tantu Cardinal, Graham Greene, Wes Studi, but just the representation of a whole was very, very, very small. So when I went to the University of New Mexico, I took a couple of classes there, and I realized that through my acting teacher, that it was actually possible, you know, to do that, to like be an actor as a career and a career choice. And you know, I didn't really have too many, I guess, teachers in the way of how to do it besides, you know, just reading books and talking to my acting teacher, talking to other actors who were local actors at that point in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And everybody kind of had a different, essentially, method and plan as to how their career would go. And ultimately, just auditioning, meeting casting directors, it's all almost like a formulaic way to get cast. And just starting off, you know, starting with plays, starting with commercials, background work, it all kind of like gives you a little bit of a framework to really understand how a film set works and how a play works, how a television set works. It's really interesting learning all that. And I'm really grateful to the University of New Mexico for really helping me to understand the technicalities of being an actor, because it's very technical. It's strange to think about it that way, because when you're watching a movie or a TV show, you think of it in a very linear fashion. And it's never like that when you're filming. It's very technical and very different as opposed to just watching it play out at the end result. So I guess just starting on the first slide. Okay, so just as an actor, purely as an actor, you know, like as a Native actor, trying to understand the history, the evolution of Indigenous cinema, and understanding the archetypes and the tropes that go along with, you know, how we're depicted in the media and how we were depicted historically. And one of the main depictions that we had was like the raider, the savage, you know, in historical films where we weren't even portrayed correctly. We were essentially, there were non-native actors playing natives back in the day, like in the very early vestiges of film and the silent movie era in like the very, very early depictions. And it was very problematic in the sense of how we were depicted. We were very, very one-dimensional, and we were almost the villain in every single production. And just seeing yourself as the bad guy in like that kind of a situation for um the only media depictions available at that time, it's a very strange thing to see. So when I first started diving into the history of it and just really watching how we were depicted, it was just very, very, it was disheartening to say the least, because just watching us as the bad guy, it's just consistently, it's tough, definitely tough. And when I first started, I was really like, you know, trying to understand the history. And, you know, like there were times where I was just like, what were they thinking? Like, how could they have depicted us like this? You know, but the John Wayne mentality, that was literally all there was. And with such little availability for screenwriters and such little how do I say it? Availability of lens. It was basically through the white lens. It was nothing else. Like all races were depicted in a terrible manner, besides the white race. And it was just another very frustrating thing to see. Next slide, Savannah. So as we kind of go a little bit further, you know, we're kind of moving along in the evolution of Native film, and we start seeing roles that are giving us more sympathy, so to speak. So we start seeing more of like the noble savage. We're not so much the villains now. We have a little more sympathy, you know, with the lens changing, with the more variants of like screenwriting and directors like coming about with the productions. We're starting to see a variance of the traditional archetypes of the Native American on screen. And just to give two examples, like these are two amazing actors that were nominated for Best Supporting for the Academy Awards. They were the first two, and it was very interesting depictions. If anyone has seen Little Big Man, you'll understand the role that Chief Dan George played. And then for Dances with Wolves, which is like the depiction that my generation grew up like kind of seeing and watching, and like especially like, you know, being Lakota, like we watched that. And you know, there were even language classes that we had in elementary and middle school where we were translating certain scenes from that movie. So needless to say, that was a pretty pivotal point in the sense of how we were depicted. And it was almost shown as like a native that wasn't ready for the change of times and wasn't prepared for it, but the change of times were coming. And it was an interesting depiction because like I said, it's giving us more sympathy. We're not the villains anymore, which was a great situation to see, but still it really just puts us in this sort of victim category. You know, we're just unable to keep up with the times according to the lens. We're essentially a tragedy. So next slide, Savannah. The really cool thing about being a native though, and watching, you know, like really going through the evolution, and especially being able to be there myself, it like really honestly makes me emotional thinking about it. But I was there when Lily got her Golden Globe I was in the movie Killers of the Flower Moon with her. I played her second youngest sister, Rita Smith, and just going through the whole like filming process and really understanding like the work and the ethics that she put into it, into the character. It was such a beautiful learning like curve for myself because I had never seen an Indigenous actor, you know, up close on set working with such character depth and the ability that Martin Scorsese gave us to like really dig into our characters. He gave us so much lenience in the sense of like talking to the community, like connecting us with elders, connecting us with surviving families of this tragedy, really, really getting to understand the depths of the tragedy of the what's known as the Osage Reign of Terror, ranging from it was 1915 through the 1930s, and on the Osage Nation, and just really digging into that and really going into those depths with my sisters and myself and my movie mother, Tantu Cardinal. It was such a life-changing experience. And just from the start of filming, I mean, to getting the part, honestly, because it was pandemic times when we all found out we got cast. And everything got really held up for a while because of the pandemic and the inability to film. And when we started resuming production, we got to Oklahoma, meeting my sisters, meeting my movie mother, who is literally one of my biggest idols as an actor. Tantu Cardinal is amazing. Just meeting everyone on set, meeting the legendary Martin Scorsese. I feel like that's not even the epic, amazing, legendary Martin Scorsese. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. They were really cool too. But just going through the whole process with Lily and watching like the awards at how a campaign works. I had never seen anything like that. And getting to be there for every single event, for like Critics' Choice, for the Oscars, for the Golden Globes, for the SAG Awards, going initially for the premiere in Cannes, it was such a life-changing moment. And when I look at this picture of Lily like holding her Golden Globe, it just literally brings so much emotion to my mind, and I'm so endlessly proud of her. The list that I wanted to put on there, this is kind of a funny list because I was going through this with my 15-year-old son. I have a 15-year-old son who is also an actor, and I wanted him to give me his perspective of, you know, who made Indigenous films that's a native and who made Indigenous films that wasn't a native, and how we were equating this list was directors and screenwriters. So we were just, you know, examining his mind of the first things that come to his mind for the depictions. And so this in no way is like a big list, but it's just, you know, basically the list from a 15-year-old boy and his mom as we were kind of doing some homework on stuff. So some of the lists like made by Indigenous filmmakers: Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, Miko, Smoke Signals, and Resball. Miko is a really interesting one because my dad is also he's a stunt man, and I didn't grow up close to my dad. I didn't meet him until I was 13, and I never really was close to him, just to be honest. But you know, having that as a starting point as an actor really did help me because stunts aren't something that I ever got into, but my dad transitioned into an actor. His name is Rodney Rondu, and he transitioned from stunts into acting. And one of his most amazing pieces to this day that I cannot recommend enough is a film made by Sterling Harjo called Miko. Absolutely amazing film, and I'm so proud of my father for such a beautiful piece of work. So that's something that made the list naturally for my son. And we're looking at the made by non-Indigenous filmmakers. And this one's kind of a difficult one because ultimately Jane Myers was involved with Prey, but we're talking about, my son and I were only talking about the director. and the screenwriter. So that is considered by that list means, you know, made by non-Indigenous. And Killers of the Flower Moon is also on there. Yellowstone, Frontier, and Horizon. And just looking at the list versus the Indigenous versus the non-Indigenous depictions, we have such interesting ways of telling stories as Indigenous people, and telling it through our lens makes a huge difference. I don't know if anyone's seen Horizon yet. It's the same person that made Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner, and it's such a drastic, different lens of the Native people in that film versus how he made Dances with Wolves. And it just shows that, you know, it does have a huge audience, you know, when these non-Native filmmakers put a lot of their money and promotions into their projects, but it's very it might hit, it might miss. And unfortunately, I feel like with Horizon, it was a difficult one to connect with as a Native, and my son had agreed. So it was a weird exploration into Kevin Costner's work for the both of us. And because my son actually auditioned for 2 parts in Horizon, and I was really excited to see how it turned out. And with the first part, I was very it was an interesting one, to say the least. But I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. And I think we all have our own opinions on Yellowstone. But next slide, Savannah. So again, this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. Both Indigenous and non-Indigenous projects can be beneficial in depicting us as accurate as possible, as long as bona fide Natives are involved. We are nuanced, complicated, and above all, we are not a monolith, but human beings. And I think that's such an important thing, that every single Native project, Native made, like Native directed, Native screenwriters, like they really flesh us out in a way that I don't necessarily feel non-Native filmmakers always are able to do. And that means a lot when it comes to media depiction. Next slide, please. So the impact on tourism, I only have a few reference points for this. And one being probably my earliest reference point was when I was a child and I was living in Rapid City. I would go back and forth between my reservation in Poplar, Montana, and Rapid City, South Dakota a lot. And when we would drive, my mother and I always remember seeing this sign, and it was a sign kind of just off the road, sort of billboardy, but kind of makeshift billboardy. And it was before you got to Rapid, and it was see the horses that worked on Dances with Wolves. So it was essentially like a tourist area, like a lot of Rapid City is. But it was kind of a funny one because, you know, that was one of my earliest reference points, one of my earliest memories of Rapid City is seeing that sign. And just like being like, oh, Mom, we should go see those horses. I want to see the horses that were on that. Do you think they had wind in his hair's horse? You know, like just a child. And that was one of the first things that I thought of when this bullet point was brought up on the impact of tourism when it comes to Native projects and the areas at hand. But besides Dances with Wolves, besides the childhood experience, just leaning back towards the actor's perspective, Killers of the Flower Moon and Reservation Dogs were both filmed in Oklahoma. And I spent an extensive amount of time in Oklahoma, in the Gray Horse, the Pawhuska and Bartlesville and Tulsa areas during the filming of those 2 projects. And just understanding the difference is really interesting because Killers of the Flower Moon was a huge budgeted project. Marty spent upwards of $200 million on the project. And we filmed in areas, if anyone's familiar with the Osage area, we filmed in a lot of areas that are known as the Drummond Ranch. And I don't really want to get too far into that because I feel like I'll get a little long-winded with that. But the Drummonds were traditionally settlers to the area, non-natives, and they acted as essentially it's hard to explain it like technically today, but back in the day, Osage weren't thought of as citizens. None of us were, as Native Americans, as enrolled Native Americans. We weren't citizens at that point in time. And every Native essentially had to have a person that controlled their money. And every Osage had to have a person, if they were over half Osage, had to have this person that controlled their money, because the Osage Nation during that time of the Reign of Terror were the richest people per capita in the world because of their oil on the reservation. And it drew a lot of vultures, which essentially made it so the Osage couldn't spend their own money without having to essentially take out. It's infuriating, honestly, thinking about it like in modern day times, but they had to have these keepers that would give them them out their money. And there was a lot of really terrible things that happened with that. And the Drummonds were involved in that particular way, and they got land because of that. So the thing that really upsets me, and just, the impact of tourism, is that a lot of those sites that we filmed on were on Drummond Ranch. And that's such a wasted opportunity for Native tourism, because that could have been, that could have been more so based in like actual like Indian land, Indian owned land. And just to have, the pure experience of reservation dogs and seeing the tourism impact in Okmulgee and Tulsa, it's such a drastic difference. And I really hope that in the future, the big budget productions really take that into account and film on Indian owned land. Next slide. So again, the challenges are pretty much just what I said originally. For Native, film, it's funding. Like a lot of times studios aren't willing to fund us on our own, in the sense of, if we don't have, a really well-known white screenwriter, a white director, they're not as willing to fund. And it's very problematic. And I really hope that changes in the future. As an actor, I have really, really good hope that it will. So thank you everyone for the time. I really appreciate it. And it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Janae, for your presentation. Our next speaker is Kevin Marcus, and just to let you guys know that we may go over a few minutes. If you wish to stay on, that would be great. All right, let's get started.
Thank you very much for having us on here. Jennifer, Janae, the information that you shared and your perspectives are incredibly important. We just feel humble and filled with gratitude just to be a part of this. We can offer a little bit of our perspective. So you have myself and my producing partner, Ray. We've been very good friends and involved in the film industry in various forms for about 20 years now. And what I'd like to share, what we both like to share, is a little bit of our journey in terms of how we grew up and the perspective that we were taught and were immersed in from school to popular culture, and how that informed the beginnings of our work in film and in documentaries, and the meaningful evolution that's taken place, especially over the last 20 years, in terms of the stories that we want to tell, that we want to help support, and the overall changing perspective that we're actually seeing, especially with younger generations. And this is a very exciting time to be committed to this sort of work. There's a lot of potential, but let's go back. I myself have family that have been involved in film and TV going back to the 1950s. My great uncle was the original director of I Love Lucy, and then he went on to do quite a bit of Gunsmoke. And I grew up watching reruns of those shows, and I grew up hearing stories. And combine that with my public school education, and I'm here in Los Angeles, and it's a very liberal, progressive enclave overall. But in the 1980s and 1990s, everything was still very straight-washed, everything was very whitewashed, and that was just the default perspective. Janae and Jennifer already touched upon the tropes that existed. And in 2024, it's actually rather amazing to look back at that time and see how confined the perspective was in terms of popular culture and identity. I'm someone who looks like a white guy. I am Jewish, I am Hispanic, and I'm queer, and I identify with all three of those identities. I don't wear them as labels, but that's who I am. And I grew up thinking I don't have a place in American history. American history is the John Wayne cowboy image, and that's all I thought existed. And like I said, we've made progress, but there's a lot of possibility now. So let's go back to our beginning. We started our documentary work in 2010. And if you want to pull up some of the slides, one of our first projects was about the 150th anniversary of the Pony Express. This is a lot of romanticized history. And here are photos that I took myself. Ray and I co-produced the project. You can please keep going. You'll notice thematically, and please continue. Oh, sorry, go back one more to the previous one. You see a lot of the mythology of the cowboy, the white person in the quote unquote savage wilderness. And we did not know any better at that time. And that's the story we told. And it was from a very singular perspective. So that's the reality that we reflected. We did happen to get involved with an organization called the Oregon-California Trails Association. And they're a nonprofit, and they have chapters pretty much in every state west of the Mississippi River. And when we met with members of that organization back in 2010, and again, this is not that long ago, they were very focused on the straight-washed and whitewashed narrative of manifest destiny and the white person taming the wilderness. I can remember the first time we went to one of their conventions, walked in on a lecture midway through as an older white gentleman said in a trilling voice about explorers, quote unquote, into New Mexico. And that was the first white woman to enter the Santa Fe Valley. And I was 27 at the time, and mentally, I immediately thought, so what? There were already people there. And that was the beginning of a sense of, well, all right, we're historians. I have a background in cultural anthropology myself before I went to film school. And we're not getting the full story. And that started our journey forward. We can actually go forward to the next slide. So you'll see a gentleman in a blue shirt with glasses and white hair. He has been a friend and an ally and a partner for a long time. His name is Travis Boley. He is the association director of the Oregon-California Trails Association. We've done a lot of documentary work with him as an advisor. He has multiple degrees in US history. He is an open-minded, progressive realist in terms of the events that have shaped this country. Very much a sense of we can't go back and change the past, but we can actually correct a lot of the mistakes going forward so we don't repeat what has already happened. But we need to actually have stories told to make sure that that's actually happening. Travis has worked diligently to shift the perspective of that organization from that moment that I shared 15 years ago in New Mexico, to realize that the trails themselves, the Oregon Trail, the California Trail, the Santa Fe Trail, these were native trade routes. They were hunting routes. They existed for millennia. And when people like us just learned that, it shifts your entire perspective, and it makes you question everything that you've been taught and everything that pop culture represents. And so here we are actually at a pre-Mandan village in Mitchell, South Dakota, which has been excavated. It's a 1,000-year-old archaeological site. And another zeitgeist moment for us was a lot of the artifacts that were dug up in this site were from the Gulf Coast and from the Pacific Coast. And you get a direct understanding of the depth and the history of these trade routes that existed long before any Europeans came here. These are stories that if people were just made aware of, it would shift the entire conversation. They also produced a lot more buffalo than was needed for the inhabitants of that village. There were only 300 there at any given time. So again, complete evidence of this entire complex world filled with people that's not really part of our current narrative, but we're moving more in that direction. So we can keep going a little bit more. Every time we do a project that involves American history, our default is we need to have Native American perspective. And the fact that that has been met with such surprise, I mean, it actually makes us a little upset. It's a thought of course, these are the stories that we want to tell, and these are the perspectives that we need to have. It's not even trying to be politically correct or inclusive. This is what we should be doing. We can move on a little bit more. And so we keep working with the Oregon-California Trails Association. This was one of our more recent projects that's been airing on the First Nations Network and PBS. Preservation effort on a historic trail that has been largely undeveloped. And so we went out to document a section of this trail in Nevada. And here we are on the ground. You can move forward one more, please. It doesn't always go smoothly. We've already had Janae and Jennifer talk about the difficulty when you actually go out and make a film. Big budgets, oh yeah, you run into a lot of problems. Smaller budgets, you run into a lot of problems. So luckily we got ourselves unstuck. Move forward a little bit more. A lot of what we focus on is the connection to nature and just the natural landscape of the North American continent. It started informing in us a sensibility of what was lost when Europeans, Americans, and the concept of manifest destiny came through and not only routed out the people whose land it was, but effectively destroyed a very vibrant and very interconnected ecosystem. So that's also been part of our education, recognizing that. One more, please. And again, on this project, it wasn't just about the immigration history. The Native American perspective was part of the foundation of the storytelling that we wanted to include. So we reached out to Leah Brady, who was very kind to offer her perspective on her people's connection going back 5 or 6 generations, just with her, with what she shared. Again, a sense of these are people who have been here for millennia, and the nuance of their story weaving into the overall fabric of what we want to tell as historians, getting into a better place. Please go right ahead. So this is us working, and we're trending into the modern era right now. Travis and Ray and myself went to the Stewart Indian School, the former Stewart Indian School, to premiere our Gravelly Ford documentary. And what I love about the work that we do is that we meet people and we learn, and it changes who we are, and it changes what we know and how we think. And this is a wonderful example of that, because we got connected with Nevada's Indian Territory, and we got to meet Ben Rupert. And that's informing a lot of the storytelling that we want to help with right now. Please go right ahead. And that was the first time we encountered each other. You can see Ben in the camo jacket and the Beavers cap, which my colleague is also wearing right now. Please go right ahead. There is myself and Ben and Caitlin Lonergan from the National Forest Foundation. One of the big things that we believe in is cooperation and partnership in the stories that we tell. So we've had some absolutely wonderful experiences working with partners like Ben and like Caitlin. Please go right ahead. Here we are actually filming for Nevada's Indian Territory. That organization, which Ben is a part of, is all about eco-cultural tourism. And what's neat about that is you have older generations, you have the boomer generation who grew up with the fictional narrative that my great uncle helped contribute to, with shows like Gunsmoke. But you have younger generations that actually want to feel a connection to history and understand the nuance associated with it. And native storytelling in the direction that it's going in, eco-cultural tourism, where there's a connection to the land and people in a very developed sense, I think is going to be a foundational aspect of how things are going to shift, how perspective is going to shift going forward. We're already feeling it and seeing it right now. So there's a degree of excitement about what's possible in all of this. Please go right ahead. This is us working with Ben more. And oh, I know we're running over, so we can. There you are. And that is Meeks Bay, which is administered by the Washoe tribe. It's a beautiful place. Again, telling stories that respect Native people and the land itself has been so wonderfully enriching for us. We're honestly just grateful for having these experiences. Just go right ahead. One of the things that we learned, Ben likes to help out when we do our shoots. One of the things that we learned as historians and environmentalists, and this is very applicable in California and all across the West, is the importance of Native American land stewardship going back millennia. One of the effects of the misguided efforts to conserve and preserve our forests, especially in the late 19th and throughout the 20th century, was the removal of that native stewardship. And we're seeing the effects of that with invasive species, with bark beetles, with droughts, with uncontrolled wildfires. So again, learning that, well, wait a minute, nature was not just left to its own devices. There was human interaction going back 20,000 years. Please go right ahead. It's just us traveling, doing the work that we do. So that's where we are right now. We are in a place where we want to collaborate. We want to learn. We want to grow as people. We want to help tell stories that should have been a part of our collective conversation, that because of a lot of the circumstances that have already been brought up, have not allowed that to happen. But with the way things are moving, with younger generations wanting to feel a connection to the land, to the history of this continent, and all of the perspectives that are associated with that, we're excited about where things are heading, and we are just grateful to be a small part of it.
Thank you for the information, and we have some time for some questions and answers. Let's see. Just saw a question, 1 second. How can we support you to keep telling these truths? From Carrie Bean. Does
So
anybody want to answer that question?
I'd say cooperation is the best thing. And I know that's a very hard thing to do, given in the past that things devolved into stereotypes so quickly. And Hollywood as an industry can be very superficial and fickle at times. And Janae and Jennifer both address this. If something does not look like it's going to be as easily profitable as possible, then a lot of people here locally might, in studios and more formal organizations, might not want to give it the time of day. But if people band together, if we build on the partnerships that we are currently working on, there are ways to create content and have it find an audience that does not rely on that studio system. And the more people are aware of everything that's out there that has still not been shared to the point where it is part of our collective consciousness, the more that happens, then the more the larger projects, I think, are going to be able to be funded and be successful.
Do you have contact information we would be able to reach out to and to collaborate with?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, we put them in the chat for them to see.
So we have also been involved years ago in narrative feature film production. You can see our Knowledge Tree Films website there. Much more recently, we work in, I would say, branding, marketing, documentary storytelling. That's the KT Media Group link. So the Knowledge Tree Media Group is that sort of work, and Knowledge Tree Films is our narrative film work. And again, partnership. We found a company from Washington State we are partnered with. We're connecting dots in Oklahoma, actually. Jennifer, it would be great to speak with you further about that. We have some connections on the ground in Tulsa. We have connections in Minnesota, in Missouri, in New York. It's a team effort. That I cannot emphasize that enough. When people work together, things happen.
Okay. Thank you to our speakers and thank you for the attendees for joining us today. If you are not an IANTA member and would like to be, please visit us at ianta.org/membership. To wrap us up, a few more notes from our IANTA team. We want to remind you that aside from our webinars like this, we offer online resources working to educate visitors and the greater tourism industry about visiting Native nations and communities. As a part of our efforts to promote Indigenous tourism, I want to highlight NativeAmerica.travel. This is a fantastic platform where Native-owned businesses, museums, culture centers, and demonstrators can demonstrate and showcase their work to a broader audience. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd love to help you get started with that and share your incredible work with the world. We are excited to host the 26th Annual Indigenous Tourism Conference, AITC, happening October 28th through the 31st, 2024 at the Paragon Casino Resort, hosted by the Tunica Biloxi Tribe. This is an essential event for anyone involved in Indigenous tourism, offering valuable opportunities to learn networking and grow. Don't miss out. Visit ianta.org/AITC today to secure your spot before it's too late. Register now. Exhibitor and artesian spaces are still available. Again, please visit our website, ianta.org, to learn more about our education offerings. Don't forget to register for AITC now at ianta.org/AITC. Thank you again and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Wado, don dago hongi.
Thank you all.
Thank you much.